evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Raising Bulls, brought to you by the Beautiful Game Network, Golden Goal Press, and Roughneck Scarves. We are the only podcast dedicated to the New York Red Bulls 2 of USL Championship. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a win that briefly put New York Red Bulls 2 in first place, but they're back in second after Tampa Bay retook the top spot, but a win nonetheless. You have a little bit of news around the league, in particular with some player movement within the New York Red Bulls 2 organization. We're going to be talking to first-year striker Mathias Jørgensen. It sounds like I pronounced his name wrong, but guess what, guys? That's how it's pronounced. Mathias Jørgensen. I do make a fool out of myself, which you'll enjoy later when we get to that section. And then we're going to preview the match against Hartford, and we'll look at the standings as always. Joining me tonight, probably my favorite co-host, I would say at this point. By default, Bill hasn't been here in many weeks, and someone else has gone entirely. So, hello, Joe Steen.
Hello, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Pretty good. Another win this weekend. That's 7 unbeaten now, and briefly reclaimed first place, as you mentioned, but Tampa Bay took that back. But still, it's good to see them playing well with at home and just in general.
Yeah, I think that in terms of putting together a really solid performance from top to bottom, this was the perfect type of match for the team. They got stretched once really badly, and we'll touch on that in a minute. But otherwise, they kept things really tight. They really didn't give up too many opportunities. Loro came up big when he had to, and they were clinical. They got their 2 goals. And whatever else happens this year, I think they have proved themselves to be one of the best teams in the East. And it's just a matter of staying consistent like they have over the last number of weeks.
Yeah, I thought Jean-Christophe Kofi especially put a great performance in this game. I thought he really controlled the midfield. He's really taken on that kind of destroyer role, and he was put in some really good challenges. Sebastian Elney combined really well with Edgardo Rito, especially in the first half. Rito really got down the wing and created a lot of chances with his crosses, and when Red Bulls to a couple corners. But, and, the goal in the first half, it was such a nice team goal. Some really nice passing, and Jared Stroud picks out Elneny, and he beats the keeper near post. And, the second half, they really kind of just didn't, they created a little bit, not as much as in the first half, but I thought they did a really good job of preventing St. Louis. And then Bezecourt breaks really well, gets tripped up. Umar gets sent off, and he rattles a crossbar, and then Elney's right there to tap in a second. So, the defense really wasn't required to do a lot in this game, but still, the fact they were able to keep a clean sheet in this one, I think, is something they can definitely build on.
Well, there's 2 things that I looked at for the defense heading into this match. One of them was going to be how they handled any counters that St. Louis tried to pull off, and to their credit, they really only let one bad one behind them. I touched on that a moment ago. I didn't write down who it was, though. I'll have to look back at it. But Evan Loro makes a big kick save on that, just, running out, staying big. We've seen him do it a number of times this season. He was there again when they needed him most. But otherwise, I wanted to see how the Red Bulls responded to a team that is very good on set pieces like St. Louis. And honestly, there wasn't really much trouble on the night. I think the beginning of the second half, and maybe for about 20 minutes or so, St. Louis held possession. They were creating problems. They were looking to maybe combine and find holes. And they just were not able to do it. And I think if you're John Wolynek and you're Evan Loro, you are very happy with the performance of the back line in this match, as you said. The other thing you mentioned was Jean-Christophe Kofi, who I thought was terrific in this match. If you look back at the first goal that you mentioned, yes, Stroud gets the assist, but that play only happens because Kofi steps in and makes a great It's not quite an interception or a tackle, but he just kind of strips the player and gets the ball forward and starts that movement. And without that, Stroud doesn't get the ball at the top of the box and kind of have his moment. And huge amount of credit goes to Elney in this game. Earlier in the week, we found out Marcus Epps was going on loan. That opened the door for Elney and Ben Mines potentially to kind of look for additional playing time and kind of stake that spot as their own. And Elney in that first match out, I think, made a really strong case to continue to see starts out wide, which is something I've lauded him for a couple of weeks now. I like seeing him out there almost as a second striker, but he does provide a little bit of width as well because he's good on the ball. Maybe doesn't always make decisions as fast as I would like to see, but I think he's definitely got promise to be a bit of a menace from the outside, something like Junior Flemings was for this team.
Yeah, I think you saw it in this game. His link-up play with his teammates is very good. There was a couple nice flicks he had with Jared and combination play with Jared and with Kofi. And I touched on it earlier with Edgardo Rito. I thought he and Rito combined very well on the outside. And John Woliak touched on this at the end of the game that whenever Elney starts, he seems to put in really good minutes. He touched on the fact that it's he does a lot of things well, and they've tried to get him more minutes. Obviously, with Epps departing now, he will continue to see more minutes if he continues to play that. But it was telling that Woliak had high praise for him when he starts, as because as we know, it's tough to come in off the bench and get a feel for the game and where it's going. So. The fact that John spoke so highly of him after the match, of how well he's played when he started, I think bodes well for his minutes going forward.
100%. Coming into a match is a really different beast. You really have to hit the ground running, and it's just like dancing. Like, if you jump in on the wrong beat, then you're never going to catch up. And Elney, I think, definitely struggled in those roles at times this season, so it's nice to see him getting time from the beginning of the match, getting starts, and showing what he can do. And clearly, he's capable of getting goals in the box. It looks like he's the type of player like a Brandon Allen type in terms of the way that he approaches the striker role, where he doesn't necessarily need to dribble in the box and look to open up space. He's very quick. He looks like he's got a poacher's nose for goal, and that could be a very good thing as they head down the stretch, especially when teams kind of clue in on a guy like Barlow and the danger that he represents. It gives Elney a little bit more room to operate. Rito back in the starting lineup for this match. He's been gone for a while, but Reese Buckmaster, we'll talk about in a minute, moving up to the first team. That means there's going to be minutes available. And from what we've seen of Rito in the past, it's been good. There's been moments where maybe he could be a little bit defensively irresponsible if he's forward in the attack. But he's got a great motor, and I think just his energy on the back line sort of feeds the rest of the team at times.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I think he's very good going forward. I think his pace presents a lot of problems for teams. And he helped create a lot of chances. He won Red Bulls to a lot of corners. There was a lot of nice crosses into the box that unfortunately Barlow couldn't get on the end of, or nobody can get, or any other player can get on the end of. But I do like him going forward. I want to see a little bit more from him defensively, but as opposed to, I think he's a little bit. I don't think he's as good defensively as Reese, but compared to Reese going forward, I think he's a lot better.
Yeah, and I think he's got enough recovery speed to really cover some of his what's the word I'm looking for? Inefficiencies defensively. So I think he can get away with it sometimes. We've seen that out of some other players that have been through the system before, but I think he's got enough of the physical tools naturally to kind of weather the storm when things get bad. Let's talk man of the match. Who you got?
I'm going to give it to Sebastian Elney. Getting 2 goals, making Team of the Week. I think he had an impressive performance, and I think he's deserving of Player of the Game.
Fair. I agree with you. We didn't even talk about the second goal. There is a Vincent Bezecourt free kick. It's about the weirdest goal, I think. Maybe not the weirdest one we've seen this season, but it's definitely a weird one. It looked like it was straight out of FIFA. It's saved kind of off the post. It bounces off the goalie's leg and just kind of dribbles across the line. Elney there to clean it up. Look, it's opportunistic. I think almost any player in the world can score there, but you still got to be the smart kind of player to run in and follow the shots in. And we've seen that from the Red Bulls too on numerous occasions. So it's good to see it again here. Sebastian Elney, you're our man of the match. I touched on 2 of these topics already, but we're going to talk about them anyway. Reese Buckmaster signed to the first team. To me, this is a slam dunk signing. And I look at the reactions around social media, and I have to roll my eyes. Because all year long, we've been hearing about how the first team needs wing-back depth.
Yes.
Because Connor Lade isn't good enough anymore. That has been the refrain online for months. And they sign wingback depth who's capable and has potential and could become a regular starter. And there's still complaints about it because he's from Red Bull 2. This team is such a weird lightning rod when it comes to players moving up, because the whole point of this team is to develop these types of players where they start off as depth options and slowly work their way into regulars for the first team. But for some reason, that's offensive to fans. And it's really hard to wrap my head around it. But I want to get your take, just first base level of Reese getting the call up with the first team.
I think I'm happy for him. I think he's put in a lot of good minutes with Red Bull 2 this year. I think defensive. I mean, I know he's not the fastest guy, but I think positioning. He saw it over the weekend. The nerves I think got to him early on, but in the second half, I thought he was rock solid. I thought he played very well, and I think you give the coaching staff a little bit of credit for adjusting him and maybe calming him down a little bit. But he's still developing. He's not going to give you a lot going forward as of right now, but defensively, I think he was one of the better defenders on Red Bull 2 this season. And
to be fair, yes, I agree that he's not going to be a dynamic presence offensively right now. But also in this match, Chris purposefully wanted to be a little bit more defensively responsible because of how they've been getting beaten over the last couple of games, where the wingbacks are out of position and it unbalances things. I actually wrote an article about it. I'll believe in my own ego that Armis must have read my article and agreed. It's not the case. But so he wanted the guys to stay back, and we didn't see him get forward much at all. What we did see is him pinching in a little bit to help cover some of the problems that were happening in the midfield, which then led to problems outside. But overall, glad with his debut. I think the haterade is far too potent this season amongst Red Bull fans, but this is a great signing for the first team, and I will hopefully get to watch them eat their words. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to watch people eat their words. so we'll see. The other one that we talked about was Marcus Epps, out on loan now with Memphis 901. I get the sense that this is probably the end of his tenure with the Red Bulls, just based on a couple of things, and we've touched on it earlier in the season. He came into the year as a depth option with the first team. He has pedigree with playing Bethlehem Steel and Philadelphia Union. The Red Bulls kind of tried him out. It doesn't seem like it worked out. It doesn't seem like they expect him to continue to contribute at the first team level, which is where it's going to be most important. And when you look at the Red Bulls 2 setup, having a guy like Epps who doesn't necessarily have a future with the MLS Red Bulls, it's hard to justify keeping him on the payroll. And by that extension, it makes sense to kind of cut ties at this point and give minutes to guys like Elney and Ben Mines, who are still young, and the team wants to see more from.
Yeah, I mean, he was brought in as a depth signing, and he really didn't see too many minutes with the first team this year. And like you said, I mean, he was brought in to be a depth guy. He's been with Red Bull 2 most of the year, and I think they want to give more minutes to some of the younger guys that they brought in. Maybe they want to see what they have. So, I mean, unfortunately, it's just part of the. It's just how this team works. If they really don't see a future for you, they just kind of loan you out, and I don't really think we're going to see much of them.
Which is a shame. I really like Epps. He was one of the best interviews we had this year. If you did not listen to that episode, I highly recommend going back and listening to it. It's a great story about his coming up through soccer and sort of the journey that he's taken. Highly recommend that. Definitely give it a listen. Marcus, in the words of sad animal commercials, I will remember you.
Oh, man.
Last bit of news before we take a break. Sebastian Elney, 2 goals in this match. He makes the team of the week for USL. Great to see. I think it was well recognized, and hopefully a sign of things to come. So, Sebastian. And that's it for our first segment. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Mathias Jørgensen. So, stick around. And we're back. We are speaking with first-year striker for the New York Red Bulls and the New York Red Bulls 2, Mathias Jørgensen. Mathias, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. I appreciate it so much.
So, a couple of big weeks for you, for the club. The team is doing very well. Things are seemingly clicking into place. I feel like most of the times that I've spoken to you this season, we focus a little bit on fitting in, but I think it's appropriate to go over that again. How are you feeling as of now? How do you feel in terms of being settled?
Yeah, of course. I think I grow every week. I came to training. I think every week, I'm a new startup player and fitting more well into the system every week, and that's good because in the start it was very difficult for me to get the transition well, but I think right now it's going quicker and quicker, and that's what I like most, and it's much easier to come to training and do what you love every day because it's going well so far. So
fitting in, I imagine you're a young guy coming to a new country. Obviously, there are some expectations around your signing that probably played into it, but it had to be difficult, at least right away. Did you find it difficult?
Yeah, difficult is not the word I'm thinking about. Sometimes if you can be a soccer player, you just have to take the steps, and you just have to close your surroundings around you and just think about yourself, your career, and your club you play in. So I think it was difficult, yes, because there was many expectations, but I was thinking I'm taking it in my step and my tempo, if you can say that, and I was just thinking about what can I do. I'm 18, what do I have to improve, and what does the club want me to do, and just try to help the club as much as I can with my specialties at the pitch. So I think it was difficult, but I think most of all, I've learned from when I was in Denmark, there was a lot of expectations when you're playing and you're not playing. And it was just try to close the surroundings around you and just focus on yourself and your club. So,
yeah, that makes sense. Did you have those sort of conversations with the coaching staff of what to expect in this first year?
Yeah, in the start we was we were talking a lot, like also about the transfer and everything, like in the start when the move has to be clear, but actually not that much, because we have taken the step in a every week we have taken a new step, and to see how where I am in my process. And for me, the start was like very fast, maybe too fast, because I had like 3 weeks in Denmark before I get over here, and I was training with myself and tried to get my physique in mind, because I couldn't train with any club, and I just had to wait for my visa. And but when I came over, like I was training in 2 weeks, and they already took me into the roster for the Mexico trip, and that was fast for me. But you know, and when you're a player and you're young, your patience is not that good, so you were just like happy for getting too quick in the roster and to getting the debut so fast. And the week afterwards, getting the debut in the MLS was quite big for me. And I was getting a lot of like time in the start, and maybe you can say afterwards it was too quick, because I haven't learned like everything about the transition. But you can always think back, but I'm just thinking about try to keep my focus forward and then don't think about what happened. That's what makes most sense in my mind.
Well, yeah, and I imagine, you know, even if it wasn't as smooth as maybe you had hoped, that's a big learning experience to have gone through that for the first time. Or was it the first time?
Like the transition was the first time like out of the country, but I have already made a transition in Denmark so far. When I was 2.5 years ago, I went from my club I have played in 7 years for in Denmark, moved to another club in Denmark, and moved away from my family when I was 16, and then tried to stay on my own feet there. And it went pretty well, like the 2 years I have with my new club. So the transition was not new for me, but out of the country it was new for me. And I think the type of playing, like it was much easier in Denmark, because like you know every team in Denmark and you know how they fit in. But try to get over the Atlantic and try a new type of league and everything, that was a bit of difficult. But of course it was difficult at the start when you're thinking back.
Yeah. So, well, you know, you mentioned your youth career in Denmark. I'm going to say this name, and I'm probably going to butcher it. Usually the folks who have listened to the show for a long time get a kick out of me trying to pronounce names of teams from other countries. I apologize if I do this poorly, but is it Hundested?
Hundested. Yeah, you're right. Like you're so close. Like,
I feel good that
in Denmark we have a lot of letters and we don't say them, so it's more smooth. But it's also my last name and my name, like it's so difficult for everything. I try to learn, like I only think it's Danny in the squad who can mention my name, and the other is just wrong every time they try. But they're trying.
No. So how would you pronounce your last name?
Shoulder for the trying. It's in real Danish. It's just like Jørgensen.
Janssen. Ah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You don't say the G and you don't say anything, but now my expectations to everybody say Jørgensen. It's good. It's good. I can understand that, so that's the best way.
Well, that's, you know, I gotta imagine that's kind of weird that you gotta just roll with the punches of everyone saying your name wrong all the time.
Yeah, like it's just like every time like people are hearing about Denmark and hear about the language, they just like they give up like after one word, because it's so difficult to learn.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. So talk to me, when did you start playing? How old were you?
I was like, I actually think you can first start in Denmark when you're 3 years old, but actually my dad, he was like a coach in my childhood club, so he took me when I was 2.5, like close to 3 years. So a little bit before 3 years, I was actually trying up to kick a ball around. But in the start, my dad was telling me like I was escaping from the ball all the time and was thinking about all the other things than focus on the soccer. But yeah, I grew up like when I was 3 years, you can say that. I started playing in my childhood club, and when I was 10, then I moved to another club called NYRBII, and I was there for 7 years, and that was like big 7 years for me because it was a big club in Denmark, and it was like they tried to get into the young academy in Denmark and try to see how far you can go as a pro in Denmark. It was like my expectations when I went from my childhood club onto NYRBII. It was like I was in my mind clear about I want to go the soccer way and see how long I can go. And yeah, it went pretty good in 7 years. And then I find out it was the right step to take the next step in Denmark to another club to try to get some other eyes and another club to see my type of playing with another eyes on instead of just the same as 7 years. And that was helping me a lot, and I had a lot of success my 2 last year in Odense. So that's actually my career so far, and then over here.
Yeah, fair. Did you have the same kind of qualities all throughout the time that you're coming up through the football world? Yeah,
I always scored goal. Like always have you call it a goal nose in Denmark. Always like living on my speed, and I was like when I was much younger, then my speed was like the big thing, so I could run past every defender and score a lot of goals. And when I grew up, then I could see like the defenders getting quicker and quicker, and it was not that easy to get around them. But it was like before I was a little bit younger, so I should try to develop my technique as well. And then I played in NYRBII, and they play only at turf, so that was good for my development. And I learned to play a lot with the feet, and we were just a ball possession team. So my qualities had always been the same, like from I was a little kid, like running with the ball, running out of the goalkeeper, tap it in an empty net, and scoring goals, and like to get on the ball and try to set some up and could tap it in the net at the end. So it has always been the same. Like,
yeah, fair. What footballers were you watching growing up? Who were you idolizing?
Oh, I was idolizing. Like I actually like seeing a lot of the Danish Superliga, and when I was younger, I see a lot of these players, but I'm not like having this big idol, because I think like when you look at me, I'm so skinny sometimes, and people say he can only run. And I was actually thinking about I'm like a different player from everybody else, and I'm actually looking a little bit about my own way and myself. But in newer time, I think about Marcus Rashford and NK and Mbappe and PSG. Like they have a lot of speed, and Rashford is not that have thin legs like me, and can do things with the ball and still like try to keep the defender away. So, and I'm a big Liverpool fan, so I was watching a lot of Liverpool. So it was like it was so like difficult for me to say like I actually like that Marcus Rashford. But it was so difficult after he scored against Liverpool in his debut, and then, whoa.
Yeah, fair.
So my dad has always been a United fan, so he was like quite good with it. But I'm always me and my uncle, we were watching the Liverpool final in 2005 against Milan, that comeback final, and I've been a Liverpool fan since that. So
very interesting.
That has been like every time like me and my dad, we are watching the Premier League and always defend each other and try to fighting against each other, because we have our own team. So
I can very much relate to that. Not with soccer, but with my dad and football. We always had different teams and would fight about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't have to agree with your dad. Not at all.
It made it more fun. It made it fun for us to have our own teams to see who would win those matchups.
Yeah. I see.
So how does he feel about your success so far?
My dad has been a big progress in my whole career, because like I think like most of the days, like people young in Denmark in a great culture, people are growing up with their parents like protect them so well. Sometimes we call them curling kids, and I'm a curling kid on my own, because it was a big, when I moved from my childhood club to the next club, there was like 1 hour drive, and they drive me a lot and took like some days off from work because they could drive me and try to see how long could I go with my soccer. And my dad has always been that dad. Like, if I scored 5 goals in a game, he was always like, I was so happy when I get out to the car, and he was like, you can do this. You have to be progress and you have to see that. And I was like, okay. Then I was getting the feet on the ground again instead of just being too high. So he has been like very, very good for me to every time, like, seeing if I could be so frustrated and then put the blame on other. Then he was like good for me to say, seeing around what can you do on your own, and instead of just blame other. And then it has been good for me to keep that development in my mind, and had been the way I grew up. That has really been successful for me, and from now. And I think right now he's proud of me. Of course he is, and but he's still like the good guy for me to talk with, because like sometimes I can see the coach is yeah, you know what, and because he's not taking me in the squad. And sometimes you always have that when you're a soccer player. You're not like you're what are you saying? Yeah, you love to compare.
Mm-hmm.
What are you saying? Compare?
Yeah.
With other, and he's good to talk with when he's like every time setting 2 ways up. What can you do and what can they do, instead of just say every time put the blame on others. So that has been good for me every time to be patient, to be humble, and see how it goes. And I know he's proud, and like I can achieve more than I achieve now.
Which of the two of you knew that you were going to be a professional soccer player first?
Oh, I think I was 10 when I moved to North Zealand, and when I was getting 13, they were getting an academy so they could compare school and soccer at the same place. And when they offer me the what are you saying, the way to get into the academy and could play and go to school at the same time in the professional club, then it was like my way to say, okay, that's the way I'm going to. When I was 13, I think. It was the start, yeah.
That is excellent. This has been fantastic. Before I let you go, I'm going to have to subject you to the lightning round.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be interesting.
Popcorn, yes or no?
Yes.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
I don't know any of them, so
that's okay.
It's a no for both.
How about Marvel or DC?
What is DC?
DC is like Batman and Superman.
I think I will go with the DC.
There you go. That is such a rare answer on this show, let me tell you. Everybody's always going for Marvel. Super Mario or Sonic the Hedgehog?
Super Mario, of course. That's my whole childhood.
Yeah, of course. Who's your favorite team to play as in FIFA? I think I probably know, but I'm gonna let you say.
Actually, you're gonna be surprising. Like, I'm not that Liverpool guy in FIFA.
Okay.
I'm like, I really love to take some of the really dribbling kings, like take PSG or Real Madrid or something. Like, I really love that. Like, they have Neymar and everything, and you can do. Yeah, you can piss off your opponent all the time. Like, so that's what I love.
Fair enough. That makes perfect sense. And this is the last one. I call it the Derek Etienne Award. Who is the worst dancer on the New York Red Bulls 2?
Oh, like, actually, like, I'm not looking like the only guy who's dancing, and I'm not saying he's dancing sometimes, he's dancing all the time. I see at him is Carl Duncan. So I would think like he's going to win the prize for the best dancer and the worst dancer at the same time.
Okay.
He do that all the time.
I like that. Yeah, Kyle, congrats.
Yeah, congrats with that. Like, I love that, and sometimes like it's too much, but it's okay. It gets some fun.
Well, Mathias, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a blast.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course. And when we come back, we're going to preview the match this weekend against Hartford. So stick around. And we're back. Final segment time, guys. And that means previewing the match against Hartford Athletic in Hartford this weekend. Now, originally, I wanted to go attend this match. I'm not going to be up there, and I'm very sad about it. Gary Redman is going to be covering this match for us, though. So if you're in Hartford and you're there, give him a shout. Say hello. Hartford is 4-15-4 on the season. Youch. However, they're not in last place, and we'll get to that in a moment. They are 2-3-0 in their last 5 matches, so they look like they're starting to get a little bit of a groove together. Not exactly. The 2 wins are on opposite ends of 3 losses, but it's still an improvement over earlier in the season. Their wins at home they are 2-5-3. Their wins in those 5 matches came against Indy 11. That's right, Indy 11, who was pushing for first place, lost 2-1 to Hartford. So before anyone dismisses this match or looks at it as a trap game, Hartford isn't that bad. They've been playing well recently. They also just beat Bethlehem Steel 3-0 this past weekend. A real hurtin' for the Steel. They lost in the middle of all these close matches. 4-3 against Swope Park Rangers, who is bottom of the table now. Charleston Battery 3-2, and Pittsburgh Riverhounds 4-2. So, they didn't just roll over and take those matches, but obviously those aren't necessarily particularly strong teams, and they really got walloped on. The leaders for goals scored, Jose Angulo, we talked about him previously, former Red Bull, former FC New York. He's got 4 goals on the season. Harry Swartz, Mads Jørgensen, or Jorgensen, now that we know the right way to say that. Hugh Dixon, Wojciech, 3 goals. Max Steves, Philip Rasmussen, 2. And Dan Bedoya, another New York Red Bull 2 original, and Logan Gadula have 8 goal apiece. Bedoya also leading the assists for Hartford. He's only played in 8 matches so far, and he's got a goal and 3 assists. With him, Hugh Dixon, Wojciech, Raymond Lee, they all have 3 assists. Then Kyle Karinga and Jose Angulo have 2. John Kempin, the goalkeeper, Max Steves, and Sebastian Dalgard each have a goal apiece. Hartford, we've mentioned in the past, they're defensively they're poor. They really struggle. Teams that can possess the ball can absolutely pass through them. The ball on the ground really gives them problems. Low crosses and looking to break lines with passing seem to do the trick against them. Last time out, Red Bulls, this was not a close match by any stretch. If you guys remember, because it was way back at the beginning of the season, this was just a sort of horror show for Hartford. It was in the midst of a great run for the Red Bulls, and they just whooped on Hartford 4-0 at home. I'm going to say Barlow had 2 goals in this match. I'm going to verify now. Nope. Barlow had 1. Barlow had 1. Derek Etienne had 1. Jared Stroud and Chris Lima all had goals. I think this is the one where Lima scored from quite a distance out.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, is this the one where Barlow also, the goal was credited to him, but it looked like it was really deflected in?
I believe so.
Good times. The team has changed a little bit since then. Kempin really isn't playing for them anymore. I forget the name of the new goalkeeper. Obviously, Dan Bedoya is a big part of the success that they've had recently. His passing in midfield has been key to the way that they've been able to get some of these results. They have a talented attack, but they really rely on getting on the break and looking for those opportunities if Bedoya is shut down. So that's one place where I think the Red Bulls 2 can really maximize the game plan. And look, I know it's Hartford at home. They haven't played particularly well home or away. But this is a game that is 100% in the Red Bulls' hands. But it's going to be all about focus and getting the job done. Joe, they win this match, it will be their fourth road win of the season, which would surpass the road wins in each of the last 2 years, if I'm remembering correctly. What do you expect to see in this one?
I think it's going to be a tightly contested game. I think Hartford is playing much better than they were earlier in the season when these two teams met. I wonder if Red Bull 2 might be looking towards that game against Pittsburgh next week. I think it's a little bit of a. I don't want to. I think it's a little bit of a trap game for them because they're on such a good run, and Hartford's coming in. Yes, they did beat Bethlehem, but they are playing a lot better. And I think that they're going to have to be aware of this. We saw in their last road game against Memphis, they had a 2-goal lead, and they kind of got in their own way at the end, not marking Brandon Allen in the second half on both of his goals. So they're going to have to be focused in this game, especially if they grab an early lead.
Yeah. Their last two matches, by the way, St. Louis and Tampa Bay Rowdies, both shutouts, both 2-0. Yes, they've got Pittsburgh next week, but it is a jam-packed couple of days for the Red Bulls too. So from August 10th, over the next 2 weeks, they have 4 matches, and it's gonna be tough for them to keep it up. They get a break between the Pittsburgh match and the Nashville makeup date, but they really had to jam this schedule. So they've got Hartford on the 10th. 4 days later, they've got Pittsburgh. A week later, they've got Nashville away. And then 3 days after that, Swope Park Rangers away. In that time, I mean, look, if you look at that and you just say, okay, this is only going to be 6 points, that's good, not great. But they should absolutely beat Swope Park and Hartford. They need to get those results. Pittsburgh at home is another promising proposition. But Bob Lilly, his teams can really trouble the Red Bulls too, and have even this year. And then Nashville away is that makeup match. They took control of that match early, but really gave it away. So that's going to be a tough one. And it all starts with this Hartford match. They need to maximize points. Yes, they're in a good spot right now. But if you look at the standings underneath them, Indy is breathing down their neck. They have games in hand and kind of control their own destiny at this point. So that's going to be interesting to watch as the year ends. Nashville, depending on how results shake out, they are winners of their last 3, so they could be creeping up by the time Red Bulls get there. They've got Hartford as well tomorrow night. Then Bethlehem Steel, then Charlotte. So they've got their own sort of difficult road ahead of the Red Bulls match. For them, it's 2 weeks, 4 matches starting tomorrow night. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Red Bulls need to get this win. Let's get a prediction from you, Joe.
I'm going to go with a 2-1 Red Bulls 2 win.
I think that's fair. I'm going to say that this is a little bit more lopsided. I'm going to call it a 3-0 victory for the Red Bulls 2. It'll be their 4th win on the road this season. It'll set them up very nicely ahead of the weekend. They get this win, and if somehow Tampa Bay drops a result to Birmingham, I mean, that's going to be an amazing stretch heading into a very, very busy period. Okay, 3-0. I feel good about that. I'll be wrong, but I feel good about it. I don't remember what I predicted last week. Did I say 2-0 again?
I think you said 3-1. Maybe.
Yeah, or maybe. That sounds about right. Anyway, so we both predict wins. New York Red Bulls 2, make it happen. Don't lay an egg. We expect to see you climbing that table once again. Let's look at the Eastern Conference. Tampa Bay Rowdies at the top with 46 points, followed by the New York Red Bulls with 44. Then Indy 11 with 40, Nashville 38, North Carolina 37, Pittsburgh 35. Excuse me. Louisville City 33, Ottawa Fury 33, Charleston Battery 26, and St. Louis FC 25. Just below the line, you have Charlotte and Birmingham Legion and Beth Steel. They are all within 3 points of 10th in the East. Then it starts to get a little bit wider. Loudoun United FC and Memphis both tied on 19 points. Atlanta United 2 on 17. Hartford and Swope Park Rangers on 16 and 15, respectively. Atlanta United 2 is laying an egg again. They're having a rough year. From where the Red Bulls are in the standings to where Swope Park is in the standings is 30 points. And I think, or it's just about 30 points. It's 29 points. I think that is a tremendous accomplishment from John Wolnick and this side. In that unbeaten run right now, in the last 5 games, the Red Bulls are 4-0-1. The only team in the East without a loss in their last 5 matches. I think
that's pretty impressive.
Pretty good. Tampa Bay would probably be there too, but they lost to the New York Red Bulls too. Woo! Out west. Oh wait, do you want to make any predictions? We're getting down to the nitty gritty here, but there's still a lot to play. There's 12 matches for the teams that have played 22, but most teams have 14 or more matches remaining. It's a little bit early to kind of be looking at the playoffs, but Charleston and St. Louis are the teams closest to the line above it, and Charlotte, Birmingham, and Bethlehem are under. Which of those 5 teams, which of the 2 that are going to make it by the end of the season?
I'm going to say Charleston, and I'm actually going to throw a surprise. I'm going to say Birmingham.
Yeah, all right. I think,
although actually Loudoun, one thing not mentioned about Loudoun, they've only played 18 games, so they have a lot of games in hand that they could make up.
True.
So I'm going to say Birmingham for now, though.
For teams that have a lot of games in hand, I tend to think that they don't necessarily climb a whole lot from their position because they're going to have a lot of congestion during the week. So we'll see with that. Of those teams, I agree with Birmingham. I think that they've been playing really well over the last couple of weeks. They're 3-1-1 in their last 5 matches, and they got wins over North Carolina FC and Charlotte in that time. They also, just absolutely destroyed Atlanta United too, but that's everybody's doing that. But they also drew against Ottawa Fury, and those are 4 really nice results over the last 4 weeks. And if they can keep up that pace, I think they're a tricky team. I think they're going to sneak into the playoffs. St. Louis really never rebounded from that early fall from grace, so I think they're the most likely to be clipped. And the Battery have been inconsistent, but they're getting results against the teams they should get results against. So I think they'll be able to stick around. Out west, things continue to be a little crazy. Phoenix Rising, 47 points. They're now the team with the most points in the league. Congrats, Joe. Reno, 1868, 44 points. Fresno, 40. Austin Bold, 33. 7 points between 4th and 3rd. It's pretty crazy. The top teams in the West are really, really not looking back. New Mexico United also on 33. Real Monarchs, 31 points. Sac Republic and OKC Energy on 30. And El Paso Locomotive and LA Galaxy 2 on 29. LA Galaxy 2, you got to give them props. A really, really strong showing in Phoenix. But giving up a very, very late goal. Could have earned at least a point there. Sad for you, I am. Below the line, the Portland Timbers, too, who had been doing pretty well this season, they are 0-4-1 in their last 5 matches. Eek. They're falling hard.
Eek.
San Antonio FC and Orange County, each on 27. Las Vegas Lights, 26. Rio Grande Valley, 23. Colorado Springs, 20. Tulsa, 19. And they're in a really terrible stretch as well. And Tacoma Defiance, still hanging out around the bottom. 3-13-5, 14 points on the season. They are now officially the worst team in the league. For now. We'll see how that goes. Out west, we talk about this every week. From 14th to 9th, they're separated by 3 points. 14th to let's see how I guess 14th to 4th are separated by 7 points. So that's still, a ton of teams that are in the race, in the hunt to get those playoff spots. Who do you think from New Mexico? Oh, this is such a huge list. Austin, New Mexico, Monarchs, Sac Republic, Energy, Locomotive, Los Dos, Timbers 2, San Antonio, Orange County, and Las Vegas. Of that group, who's the one who are the ones that are going to miss out? I think it's better to do that than to try to guess who's going to be in.
Okay. Galaxy, Los Dos, Portland 2, OCSC, Vegas. We'll miss out.
Those 4. Perfect.
Yep.
I agree with Vegas and OCSC and Timbers 2, but I think you're going to see I think you're going to see San Antonio climb. I think the team that's going to drop off, though, is El Paso. They've done well, but they've really been struggling of late. And I think they're going to end up under the line at the end of the season. We'll have to see. But you know what that means? That brings us...
What does that mean?
To the end of another episode of Raising Bulls. We made it to the end. If you want to follow us on Twitter, I'm at _Joe Goldstein.
I am at JSteen15.
And if you want to follow the show, and we hope you do, we are at Raising Bull Cast. That's one bull, Raising Bull Cast. And of course, that's on Twitter. If you want to follow our written work, you can find it at rbnn.us, the Red Bulls News Network, RB News Network on Twitter. All of our written work is there. Please come find it, give it a view. We got lots of good stuff. A whole bunch of new writers are coming on over the next couple of weeks. So be on the lookout for new content, or new contributors rather, and new content. You can find us at facebook.com/raisingbulls. You can find us at raisingbulls.com, where we post all of our episodes. And of course, you can send us questions to questions@raisingbulls.com. Questions, anything that you want to know about New York Red Bulls 2, ask us here and we will tell you. Or, well, most of the time we'll tell you. We'll try to tell you. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We are there. Find us, rate us, review us. It helps, and we very much appreciate it. We're part of the Beautiful Game Network at bgn.fm. They cover MLS, USL, Premier League, and NWSL. They've got a ton of great shows like the Old Glory Red Report, St. Louis Soccer Report, Texas Soccer Radio, The Unused Substitute, Tornado Alley, the USL Show, Backyard Footy, and so much more. They've got a ton of great podcasts, a ton of great written content. Anything that you want to know about USL, you could probably learn it there. Please give them a shout or a check at bgn.fm. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Golden Goal Press, the best choice for you to get custom shirts, hats, mugs, and other items for just yourself or your organization. Check out their amazing products at a fraction of the price of other places at goldengoalpress.com. Last but not least, we want to thank our sponsor, Roughneck Scarves, the official scarf supplier of MLS, USL, and US Soccer. Get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. For myself, for Joe Steen, for Mathias Jørgensen, thank you very much. Have a great night.